Now let's discuss the last process of your digestive system, that is egestion, which we also call as defecation. Now how will you define egestion? It is the elimination of feces from the alimentary canal. Elimination of feces from the alimentary canal. Now how this feces actually form? When from the small intestine the unabsorbed food is going to enter the large intestine, then absorption of water is going to take place, and it is here where the chyme is converted into the semi-solid feces, right? It is converted into semi-solid feces, and we have a defecation reflex which is going to initiate this process of defecation, means expelling out of the feces, which initiates peristalsis in the sigmoid colon. This defecation reflex, it initiates peristalsis in the sigmoid colon. Now this feces is going to enter the rectum. From the rectum it is going to enter the anus, and in the anus we have involuntary movements and voluntary movements of the internal and external anal sphincters. Involuntary movements are not under your control, it is in the internal anal sphincter, and voluntary relaxation is under your control. This is part of external anal sphincter. So this is how the anus actually by this relaxation movements is going to help in the defecation process, in the egestion out of the feces. So here I am just summarizing what is going to happen, means from the small intestine the chyme enters the large intestine and water is absorbed, converting chyme into semi-solid feces. Defecation reflex actually initiates peristalsis in the sigmoid colon. From there it is going to enter the rectum part, and from rectum to the anus part. And in the anus we have two sphincters, the internal anal sphincter and the external anal sphincter. The involuntary relaxation of internal anal sphincter and the voluntary relaxation of the external anal sphincter is going to push the you can say the feces, right, out. So this is how defecation process is complete. Now in the large intestine, we have the epithelial cells of the colon, and the epithelial cells of the colon, they release iron and calcium. Water absorption is taking place, plus these cells are releasing iron and calcium, and we have certain very important bacteria that are helping us, that is E. coli, that is Escherichia coli. E. coli is Escherichia coli. These are very beneficial bacteria to us because they feed on undigested matter and produce vitamin B12, vitamin K, vitamin B and B2, where the reabsorption of these vitamins occurs in the colon. So as a whole, in the large intestine, the absorption of water is going to convert chyme into semi-solid feces, and by this defecation reflex, the semi-solid feces is going to enter the anus, and by the action of the involuntary and the voluntary relaxation of the anal sphincters, the feces is going to be excreted out, and this is how defecation is going to be completed. Remember, the presence of the E. coli bacteria is very useful to us because it feeds on undigested matter and produces vitamin B12, vitamin K, vitamin B1, vitamin B2, which is actually reabsorbed by the colon. Now if we talk about feces, what is there in the feces? It is composed of 3/4 of water and 1/4 of solid matter, 3% bacteria, 10 to 20% fats, 2 to 3% protein, 30% of the feces is mainly composed of roughage, 15% of inorganic matter, and the color of the feces is because of certain pigments, that is stercobilinogen, and these pigments are actually the derivatives of the pigment, that is bilirubin. These pigments, that is stercobilinogen and stercobilin, they are the derivatives of bilirubin pigment. Remember, the color of the feces is due to the presence of the pigments, that is stercobilinogen and stercobilin, which are the derivatives of bilirubin. So the main composition of the feces, if we talk in terms of the amount, then major part of the feces contains roughage. 30% roughage is there in the feces, and the color is because of the pigments that is there in the feces. So as a whole, this is how the egestion process is there. This is how the elimination of feces from the alimentary canal takes place and defecation process is actually completed. So this is here where the end of the digestive system is. Now after the egestion, after the digestion, absorption, assimilation, the unabsorbed food in the form of feces is eliminated. So this is how the overall process actually ends up here with the egestion or the defecation of the feces from the anus.